anybody happens upon these videos and sees me complaining about Breezy, I almost want to apologize, but she's a significant problem. And so I'm just trying to vent it. You know, I watch these videos to just kind of, in a way of, I don't know, validating how I feel, or, oh, I forgot to mention this or that, you know. It's, it's a big deal. But I would like to take a break from Breezy and start reminding myself of who Maddie is. I first met Maddie in 2021. Gave nothing but respect. At the time, Heather had Breezy's wife, Ellie, and Maddie living there. Heather worked her ass off to get this house, and she gives all the bedrooms to her kids and sleeps on the couch. In the past year, I've realized how detrimental to her health sleeping on the couch with all that noise and chaos constantly, sleeping, because she works nights, 12-hour shifts. Comes home when everyone starts waking up, nothing but noise and chaos. So she had to endure that for a number of years. I didn't realize that at first. I thought it was pretty noble of her. And even last year when I moved in, you know, she had her own bedroom finally, in her own house, right? Finally had her own bedroom. Maddie moved to Texas, like, several months before I had showed up this last year. Moved in, rather. But Heather didn't have the master bedroom. She had probably the smallest room in the house. But I was happy that she had her own room, finally. But Maddie treated him with nothing but respect. And we've been cool for, you know, years, or so I thought. Maddie, near the beginning of this year, hung out and, you know, came up, hung out for a couple days, and went back to Texas. Maddie lays on the couch and just starts talking crap about Breezy, his own sister. Saying things like like Breezy can't be trusted, she's a liar, and you'll find out kind of stuff. And I told him, you know, I really don't want to get into that kind of stuff, you know. It's been, you know, fairly decent between me and Breezy. But I've only been there for maybe 3 or 4 months at this time. I caught a couple of things, you know, regarding Breezy, but I just kind of let it slide, you know. But over time, a pattern developed, and I couldn't ignore that. But let me tell you the moment where I was just like kind of done with this one. The day Heather and I got married, we got married in Vegas. We decided on the 4th of July, you know, we're taking Ellie for, you know, her birthday. It's been planned like a year in advance. The 4th of July. Heather and I just decide, why don't we just get married while we're there? She's all, sounds good to me, let's do it. I was like, all right, cool. But then I was like, you know, thinking the whole night. It was until the next day, I think, that I brought up as a joke, why don't we get married at one of those Elvis deals? But she reminded me that her mom and dad, I think 9 years ago, I could be wrong about 9 years ago, but there was 9 years, yeah, it was 9 years ago. They decided to renew their vows at the Graceland Chapel. And so I was like, well, that would be cool, because, you know, Heather's mom is like really into Elvis, has a lot of memorabilia. And so I thought, you know what, that'd be kind of a cool little tribute, and it, you know, it might be a little fun. And so the next day, Heather was at work. I was thinking, which chapel did they get married at, you know? And I don't know. I didn't receive a response right away about which chapel, but we needed to get like a specific date so that we could just lock it in. And so as I was awaiting a response for which chapel they had renewed their vows at, I did some research, and I figured, how could you go wrong with the place that conducted the first Elvis ceremony? And so I booked it with them. And then she responded like she didn't know, and turns out it was the larger venue. And I thought it would be a little cheesy or whatever, kind of. I didn't know what to expect, really. But it ended up being like a really fun experience. And, you know, as cheesy as it seemed to me, and as fast-paced as the ceremony was, I think the whole thing took 6 minutes. But they just, basically, I just went with it, and it ended up being pretty fun. And Heather was happy, so happy, so happy. She was all excited, you know. She was really happy. And of course I can't dance, so I didn't dance, but everybody else around me's kind of dancing around and stuff. I look like an idiot not dancing, but I look less of an idiot than had I danced. Anyway, we're driving around. We've been married a couple hours at this point. I don't know, maybe an hour or so. Something like that. And I've got Heather's mom in the back. Ellie's in the back. Ellie's best friend is in the back. Heather sitting next to me, of course, in the passenger seat. And had been talking to Maddie on the phone for a couple hours, probably 3 hours at this time. And so Heather's mom decides to say, they got married today. And instead of congratulations, you know, it's, well, if it makes you happy. But that's not the messed up part. Not even a minute goes by. We're probably at the 45-second point after telling Maddie that we got married. He decides to say, can I tell you guys something I've never told anybody before? And proceeds to tell her mom on her wedding day, mind you, already talking for a few hours. After finding out she's married, he decides this is the perfect time to say that he was raped by his cousin. My wife, instantly sobbing, yelling and screaming, I'll kill him, all this stuff. She could hardly breathe. And just kept going on and on and on about it. It took me 8 hours to calm my wife down enough to where she wasn't sobbing and crying and enraged. My wife, I left her in the hotel room. And I went to Ellie's hotel room where Heather's mom was also staying rather. And none of us believed that it was true. None of us. And these are people that are family, the grandma, you know, Heather's mom, always defending, you know, Heather's kids, you know, sticking up for them and stuff. And even she was like, it's not even true. And I just had to talk and talk and talk, like, who, why, after holding on to it for so long, as he claimed, would you choose this moment to accuse somebody of something that never even happened? Why would you do that? And while my wife was going off in the car, I was just like, just hang up. Just hang up. I couldn't believe it, man. So I think what I'm going to have to do is report that to the police. Because whether it's true or not, somebody's got to face a consequence. And if it's a lie, Maddie needs to face the consequence for upsetting my wife the way, as bad as he did. Because the final month of my wife's life, the stress levels that were already unnecessarily high, the manifestations that she endured from that stress, Maddie's got to pay a consequence for that. And maybe this can be viewed as a bit of a vengeful disposition. So be it. The final month, the final 3 weeks of my wife's life, her stress levels were significantly higher, and it took a toll on her. She would stress out about things that did not need to be stressed out about. Bills that I would go halves on with her had always been paid, but she was increasingly being more worried about when I get her the money, which was always available. I paid the prior month for the upcoming month every month. And the morning of my wife's passing, you have Breezy on the couch. The 2 kids are awake. You have Breezy's wife sitting also on the couch. My wife couldn't even sit in her usual spot to enjoy her shows before bed. Instead, she had to sit next to the couch in a chair, which is uncomfortable. And she had a couple drinks. And she wasn't wasted. I don't mean to make her seem like that. But also, I don't want to deny the fact that the stress that she's been under for years, she coped, with drinking a little after work. She wasn't like a drunk or anything. But every day that she was off, she would drink, and every day she came home from work, she would drink, And I'm talking like a little bit of vodka, and then the rest would be like a diet soda or the grapefruit juice, And she said that we gotta cut it out on the grapefruit juice because she tends to drink more with that than she does the Pepsi. And so we cut down on that. And she had 1 bottle of grapefruit juice in the fridge. I don't know if she used that this day at all. But even still, the bottle's only like that big, and there was like that much, like a drink's worth of, or a glass's worth of juice taken out of it. So I know she wasn't indulging. overly indulging with the grapefruit juice that day. But we also have 2 dogs. We have a German Shepherd who likes to run around, doesn't like pay attention to anything. So my wife was getting ready to go upstairs, and I had texted her, don't go up till they leave, because, well, I don't know if that sequence is proper, but I'll fill that in. She had made a drink and they spilled it. I think Oakland, had spilled it. And then she just made another drink, set it down, and then the freaking dog wags its tail into it, spills it. So I know my wife was stressed. On top of everything, now these 2 drinks just get spilled back to back. Then she makes another one. And she's sitting on the chair. I finally get over to the couch. I'm sitting on the couch. And my wife says, when I go to bed, will you come up with me? And I was like, well, there's a course I need to complete first, and then I'll be up. And then I texted her, I was like, don't go up until they leave. But at 9:15ish, she was like, I can't stay up anymore, I gotta go to bed. And as she was walking up the stairs, I just look at her, and I'm like, okay. And that was the last time my wife walked up the stairs. She never walked back down. So I think my next video is cut out for me, or the work is cut out for me. I'll have to talk about the moments that led up to my discovering her. So I've just been sitting here for 10 or 15 minutes. I went into the store, came out. Just been sitting here like it's almost like lethargy. I don't know if I'm numb or just on the verge of depression. Like I think I need to go to the store, but then I just don't want to. Or maybe I feel like I want to go to the store just to get out of the house. And I texted my dad, who's in a home. My parents are up there in age. My dad's having complications. And I thought, their passing wouldn't be so difficult with Heather around to help me out, help me through it. And now I don't have that. And I'm afraid that there's going to be 2 more in close succession. And I won't really have anybody to help me through it. I would literally have nobody. And as I close the text out from my dad, of course I have a picture of my wife. The way she looks at me. It's difficult to look at that picture. It's difficult to look at any of her pictures. Because I just feel robbed. I feel anger because she's not here. And it doesn't, like, I don't know, it's like to articulate thought to the feeling. It's impossible. Like I'm really trying to I don't know what I'm trying to do. Part of me wants to keep the house because my wife loved it and worked really hard for it. And another part of me thinks I don't want the house because the memories and the ghosts, you know, that would be there. Not like haunting ghosts, just looking in an area where she used to frequent, and or things that were said here, or, you know, when the paramedics were trying to resuscitate her in the loft. And of course they trached her, and there's a bit of a blood spot on the carpet, and I didn't clean it up right away because I felt like I would be removing a part of her from the house. But I should have cleaned it because one night, the corgi, I was laying in bed and I just hear this annoying sound. I'm like, what is that? And I didn't figure it out till it was too late. I'd get up and I'd open the door and the dog would be trotting off. I get back into bed and I hear it again. I'm like, what the hell is that fucking noise? So I get up, turn on the light in the loft, and he was like, she was digging at the blood spot and carved a big ass hole in the floor, in the carpet. So now I have that permanent reminder of my wife lying there. And my neighbor relayed one of her observances the day of my wife's passing. She was taken out the back on a gurney in a bag. And Breezy had driven around the back and brought the 8-year-old and the 3-year-old, gets out of the vehicle and dramatically drops to her knees with her arms in the air, wailing or whatever, and then proceeds to hold her hand over where, my wife's heart would be. And then she grabs the 8-year-old's hand and puts it there. And then the 3-year-old's. It's all a display. That's all it is. And so then she leans forward to kiss, Heather's head, her forehead, and then has the 8-year-old do it, and then has the 3-year-old do it. And I'm like, that's the last memory you want those children to have of their grandma? Are you serious? And it was all to convey this feigned loss, this feigned empathy, or the feigned it's disturbing to think that had happened, that had taken place. Huh. And then, of course, the next day, or later that evening into the early morning hours, that's when she decides she's going to start making Amazon purchases. And upon learning that from Maddie, due to the notifications his phone repeatedly received, I remember going out the back and opening the garage door and notice what appeared to be blood dripping at the end of the driveway. It's like somebody had poured a cup of blood there and let it run. And so I had grabbed some water in and out of the house, pouring it on the spot and trying to scrape it up with a broom, try to get it out of there, because I just do not want to see that. And as I was doing that, I noticed an ammonia smell, and I ended up looking online to see if paramedics, in the process of trying to resuscitate somebody, if they had used any compounds that would emit that odor. I found nothing, so I don't know what that could be. But I did what I could to rinse it off and scrub it free with a broom, and it wasn't entirely off. But as I go back into the house, I had to remark, I said, your mother's blood is in the driveway, and you're in here making Amazon purchases. And I try to not say some things, because I don't want to say things out of grief or anger. I don't want to say something that would haunt them. But the more time that goes on, the more I realize the lack of respect that they offered their mother, even afterward. And so a part of me does want to tell them that the stress that you put your mother under, and the constant me asking you to stop, do you think there was no reason behind it? And I remember one time, the 3-year-old had a Captain America shield, and we had the bearded dragon in the bedroom. And every time I'd open the door, me, and he'd try to rush into the room, and I'm like, no. And then I try to close the door as quickly and quietly as possible. And then he just slams into it and just starts crying. And I'm like, where's Breezy? not stopping this when she knows damn well every day, stop stomping, stop screaming, stop pounding. She's like 12 feet away, says nothing. So I had to exit the room again later. And as I came back up, I don't recall to do what, but as I was going into the room, I could see him across the hall, across the way, across the loft, into her bedroom, their bedroom. And he sees me, and he's got the shield, and he just starts running. So I just shut the door, and I lock it, and then boom, he just slams into it, starts pounding on the door. Breezy, where are you? I was just like, enough of this. And I just opened up the door and I grabbed the shield and I pulled it off his arm. I didn't yank him. I didn't like do anything, whatever. I just grabbed it, shut the door, and I put the shield in our closet. Next thing I know, Breezy's trying to get in. Boom, boom, boom. You know, give it to, where is it? Give it to me. And I just get it and I just hand it to her and I just exploded. I'm like, oh, she wants to accuse me of hurting his arm. I'm like, no, you're not playing this game. And now Heather's awake and I'm yelling now because I'm like, why is he pounding? Basically reiterating the daily thing. But I'm yelling now. And I'm like, just take them somewhere. When they wake up, you guys need to leave in the morning until your mom wakes up. That's what you guys need to do. And my wife is on the bed on her knees and she's like, Jason, I can't live like this. I can't live like this. Now she's very upset and it pisses me off even more. But then I don't want to continue because I don't want to upset my wife. So I got to sit there and listen to Breezy pretend to talk calmly and rationally. He's 3. He's 3. I'm like, take him somewhere. You're in the house all day, every day. And so now I'm worried that Breezy wants to like make up some BS and tell CPS and have me arrested, you know. But I'm laying in bed, just quiet with my wife, you know, and then I just start to tell her, you know, it's like, I'm only trying to look out for you. And I told her, I just told her I would just want her relaxed. You know, I say, I'm sorry, but enough is enough, you know. I said, I just want you to get your sleep at all cost, is what I told her. And Ellie, you know, after my wife died, she said she and Heather were sitting on the couch and she was like laying in her lap and she was like playing with Ellie's hair and they were talking about me, and Heather remarked about, he wants me to get my sleep, my rest, you know. And she repeated to her, she said, at all cost, you know. And my, you know, Ellie's mom, she heard me, you know, and that's all I want. I just wanted her to know that I would do anything for her. And Ellie knows that. She knows because she would talk to Heather. And she would tell her, I just really like the way he texts me. And she had told me that like a couple years before, after we had after she blocked me and then unblocked me. And then we started talking again. She was like, I miss our texts. And I miss texting her. There was just too much going on. I can't allow that to continue. With my wife not there. You know, my wife isn't there to, the respect I have for my wife kept me from saying the things that I've been wanting to say to Breezy, and her disrespect and her constant messes. Just blatant disrespect and disregard for everybody's boundaries. You know, there was another time where I was sleeping and my wife was in bed, and I wake up to this noise in our bedroom. And I wake up and we got these two kids are right there at the cage of the bearded dragon, talking and tapping on the glass and all this. And I was like, I don't recall what I said initially. I was like, I woke up, I was like, what the fuck? And I was all, get out! And then they just run out. And then my wife's awake now. She's all, I can't remember what she said, but I got up and I went around to the door, and I was like, why is this door open? Because we have those child locks on the other side. The 3-year-old can't open it. And Jackson knows better, you know. But the door was open, and I can't remember what my wife said, but I was like, there's just this, and this is like the first time I like really went off about anything. I was like, there's just this blatant disregard for people's boundaries. And my wife said something like, the kids probably opened it or blah, blah, blah. And I go, I doubt that. And I shut the door and locked it, because obviously Breezy opened the door to let them in. And of course, Breezy this entire time is quiet, doesn't say a word across the loft. Probably smiling inside about the chaos she just created. There is so much more that I can say about Breezy and the BS she put us under. Huh. There's just so much.